I've built things my whole life. Customized them, modified them, made them mine. And then one day, everything that I'd built was gone. And I realized that I didn't know if that creator, that builder, was still in me. We'll get to all of this in a minute. But I'm wondering, have you ever had an identity crisis? Because I have. And that's what I want to talk about today. Welcome to Piece by Piece. I'm Brian, and this channel is all about rebuilding when life falls apart. Each episode, we work on a puzzle, except today, we're working on something different. And we'll talk about one aspect of putting a life back together. Like I said, no puzzle today. I know. But this did feel important enough to take a detour for. This channel has always been about rebuilding. The puzzle's just how I made my case. But recently, this idea of rebuilding became personal enough to me that I felt like I needed to make a totem of sorts. Something to remember it all by. I will explain all of it, but first, there's something that you should know about me. Every year, I take on some sort of creative project. One new thing, a new skill, a new medium, something that I've simply never done before. It's not really a hobby, it's something far more compulsive than that. In the past, I've dyed t-shirts this exact shade of gray because no one was making this shade of gray anymore. I've made custom socks, custom hats, custom hoodies. I've learned how to sew, taken up home renovation projects, built garden beds, written screenplays. Every year, for as long as I can remember, I've taken on some sort of creative project. For me, it's my way of staying a lifelong learner. It's just who I am. But this year's project is different than every other one that I've ever done. Every project has been a solo endeavor, but this one I couldn't do alone. When everything fell apart for me, my marriage, my career, everything that I'd spent 20 years building, I had a list of questions. Sort of an identity inventory. I needed to figure out, who is Brian? With all of these other things stripped away, what hobbies, what activities, what values actually belonged to me? And which of those things were simply things that I had accumulated through the institutions that I was a part of? And this list of questions was pretty long and extensive. What clothes do I like to wear? What foods do I actually like to eat? How might I design my own living space? Am I truly a creative person? Am I an artist? Am I still a musician? Do I still believe the core beliefs that I had lived my life according to for 20 years? Do I still buy free-range organic eggs and organic grass-fed beef? Or was that simply something that I picked up because of my relationships? Do I still buy aluminum-free deodorant? Do I still want a dog? Or is that just something that I picked up on because my family ran a dog rescue for many years? Spoiler alert, I did want a dog. I hope that you're getting a sense of what I mean, but I doubt that you're getting the extent of how deep my identity crisis went. And I mean that it got genuinely embarrassing. Let me give you an example. My family never killed bugs. Spiders, beetles, Whatever found its way into our home, we would always catch it and put it back outside. It was just something we did. I remember the first time that I found a spider in my new apartment, and I had a full-blown identity crisis as I held up a cup and a piece of paper to try and catch the spider and take it outside, wondering, is this me? Or is this just something that I had absorbed over the years? This sounds ridiculous, and I know how absurd it seems. But that's what an identity crisis actually feels like on the inside. It's not one enormous existential question, it's 1,000 small ones, arriving all at once with no obvious answers. Which of these things were Brian? And which of these things were just simply a part of the life that I had been living? There's a psychologist named Kenneth Gergen who described what he called the saturated self. It's the idea that we absorb so many roles and so many relationships over time that our sense of who we are gets built entirely from the outside in, from other people's expectations, to the institutions that we belong to the life that we've constructed for ourselves. But that means when the outside collapses, a marriage, a career, a community, the inside feels like it collapses with it. That crisis is simply what happens when you've been building from the outside in without even realizing it. One of the questions that I wrestled with in my identity crisis, and it seemed less important than the rest, was, am I still a musician? Music had always played a large part in my life, but it was also something that I struggled with greatly on the backside of burnout. And so I sat with that question, am I still a musician? For a long while, before I decided to do anything about it. I still have a couple guitars, but all of them I got for a very specific chapter of my life. And that chapter is closed now. And I genuinely didn't know if those guitars belonged to that chapter or belonged to me. And so I decided to go to a pawn shop. Not to buy anything necessarily, but just to pick up a new guitar and see how it felt. When I went, there was this Stratocaster hanging on the wall. It was dinged up and overpriced. It was the sort of guitar that already had somebody else's story written all over it. I picked it up and played it for a few minutes. And the answer that I got wasn't in the guitar. The answer was in what I thought as I was playing it. I thought to myself, I could build one of these, and probably for far less than they're asking. And if I do that, I could make it custom. I could make it fully my own. So I put the guitar back on the rack, and I drove home. But I certainly didn't feel like I left empty-handed, because I had found my creative project for the year. Now, I should say that I have done this before. I have customized a guitar. When I was 15 years old, I found a Stratocaster in a pawn shop. It needed some work, and I didn't have much money, so I bought it and took it apart myself. I swapped out the single coil pickups for a humbucker, installed a kill switch, and replaced all of the hardware with black hardware. Tuners, bridge, knobs, all of it. And I cut out a custom pearl pickguard from scratch. I was drawing inspiration from all of these different guitarists that I'd loved. But at some point, without planning it really, it stopped looking like their guitars and became something else entirely. It became just mine. I wasn't deliberately trying to make something unique. It was just that all of these influences combined into something that didn't exist before. But that's exactly what I love about doing these creative projects every year. I can take inspiration from all of these different areas and make something that's uniquely Brian. My daughter has that guitar now. It's hers. But that guitar holds a lot of meaning for me. It was my first creative project, but it was also the first time that I had rebuilt something that simply wasn't working. And that was a beginning of a pattern that would carry on throughout my life. I could take something, fix it, make it my own, and then do it again the next year. Rebuild, reinvent. When everything collapsed in my life and I went through a complete identity crisis, I didn't know if that part of me, that rebuilder, that reinventor, was something that was going to survive. I genuinely had to ask myself, is this something that I still do? But thankfully, that answer came more clearly than most did during that season. Yes, that is who I am. Dan McAdams, a psychologist at Northwestern, spent his entire career studying how people understand their own lives. His argument is that identity is found in the through lines, the threads that keep appearing across every chapter, every role, every season. The things that were there before and the things that will remain after. Turns out that taking on an annual creative project is one of my through lines. It predates every role that I've ever filled, and it has outlasted them all. I just wasn't counting it as part of who I am. I drove home from the pawn shop that day with an idea, but not a design. I knew the general direction. I wanted to recreate a callback to that first guitar. A single humbucker at the bridge, a kill switch, and a custom pickguard. But when I hopped into Photoshop, the aesthetic just wasn't landing. Maybe I could recreate my current guitar, red with a black pickguard. Or maybe I could match my bass, black with a red pickguard. Maybe I could recreate that original guitar, blue with a white pickguard and all black hardware. But nothing really excited me. Something was missing, and I just couldn't name it. And then I filmed episode 4 of this channel, the Kintsugi Bowl puzzle. The idea that when something breaks, you repair it with gold, and the break itself becomes the most valuable part of the object. I went back to the design after filming that episode. What about a black guitar with gold hardware and a custom-made kintsugi pickguard? That was it. That was the design that I was looking for. And it was that episode that inspired it. But it gets even better. There was a practical problem. I had a birthday coming up. People often tell me that I'm difficult to buy gifts for, and they're not wrong. I am pretty picky. And so most years, I put together a wish list of sorts for friends and family. But this year, I reframed it. What if instead of a list of random things, this year we had one meaningful thing that we could all build together? I reached out to a small group of people, those who stuck by me in the worst of times. I sent them all a list of guitar parts, a range of pieces, a range of prices, and only asked if they wanted to be a part of it. Tuners, pickup, bridge, knobs, string trees, output jack. Every piece of gold hardware on this guitar will have come from someone who held me together. And then I gave my daughters the most important pieces. One of my daughters is a remarkable artist, and so I gave her the pickguard and asked her to engrave a kintsugi pattern into it. She made this by hand. My other daughter loves to sew, and so I asked her to make a custom strap for me with the kintsugi pattern on it. And my other daughter got me the hardware that holds everything together, the strap locks. I asked them to participate in these specific pieces because they all meant that we were building this together. Robin Dunbar, a researcher at Oxford, studied human social groups for decades. What he found was that we typically have about 5 people in our innermost circle, and those people do far more than just support us emotionally. They actually regulate us biologically. Our nervous systems respond to these people in ways that goes far deeper than we have language for. They hold us together at a level that we can't fully account for. Every piece of gold hardware on this table comes from someone in that circle of mine. The body and neck are the pieces that I contributed because I'm also a part of this instrument. And that felt important to say out loud because along with our innermost circle, we are a part of our own rebuilds. This episode is really not about the guitar. It's about going and looking for yourself and being willing to let what you find take a shape that you weren't planning on. And so here's the only thing that I want you to do after watching this episode. Grab a piece of paper or a journal and draw 2 columns. In column 1, list what burned, what fell, what was lost, what was taken. You don't need to organize it or find a lesson in it yet. Just list them out. In column 2, list out what stayed, what remained, what came back, what surprised you by still being there. Again, don't analyze it. Not yet. Just make a list. Now, what you find in that second column is likely much closer to your true identity, to who you actually are, than anything that's listed in that first column. The roles, the institutions, the life that you built around you, those things can fail. Some of them will. Some of them already have. But there are other things underneath all of that. Things that you've been doing quietly, without an audience, without stakes, for longer than you can remember. Go find those. That's the pawn shop. Go looking for it. See what you pick up. See what you think while holding it. And the answer might not be on the rack. It might be that you can build the whole thing yourself, just as you are. Now, this guitar obviously isn't finished. And in truth, I'm not a finished product either. I'm still on my way. But I do know something now that I didn't know when everything fell apart. I know what stayed. I asked myself some questions. Am I still a musician? Am I still a creative? Do I still take on creative projects? Am I still a builder? I went to a pawn shop looking for a guitar, but I came out with an answer. Turns out the builder is still in there. Today was just story time. We're actually going to assemble this guitar next episode. But we started today with a question that I didn't know how to answer for a long time. Not what am I supposed to do, or how am I supposed to get through this, but who is Brian? Is he still in there? And what I found was the answer was always yeah, he is. And that the things that are actually mine don't disappear when the roles do. They may go quiet, but they're still there. And so maybe you too can be inspired to go out and find that piece of you, that identity that's waiting for you. Thanks for watching. If this episode found you at the right moment, I'd be grateful if you shared it with someone who's rebuilding. And in the comments, I'd love to hear. Is there something you used to make or build or do that you've set down somewhere along the way? A one-word answer is fine, and I'll respond to as many as I can. Oh, and one more thing. If you're in crisis right now, please don't wait. Call or text 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Line, or text HOME to 741-741 for the Crisis Text Line. These resources are here for you, and you don't have to do this alone. I know that we didn't build anything today, but I do hope that my story helped you in some way. And we will put this together next episode. So until then, let's keep rebuilding, piece by piece.